Imagine this. You are sitting in a room full of people, friends, colleagues, family members. The laughter flows easily, the chatter feels warm, and the air seems to be filled with comfort. Every time someone asks you for something, a favor, a little compromise, your time, your energy, you agree. You nod, you smile, you comply. And in return, they smile back at you, thank you politely, maybe even pat you on the back. It feels good, doesn't it? To be needed, to be liked, to be accepted. But then, watch closely. The moment you finally say no, to one request, one demand, one expectation, the air in the room shifts, the warmth evaporates, the laughter suddenly feels distant. That friend who once called you so kind now looks slightly offended. That colleague who always admired your helpfulness now calls you difficult. That family member who leaned on you constantly now mutters, "You've changed." Why is it that endless yeses make you agreeable, but one no makes you powerful, sometimes feared, sometimes resented, and strangely, more respected? It's a paradox that gnaws at the human soul. People seem to adore you when you bend, but they only truly respect you when you resist. Pause here. Think of your own life. How many times have you said yes when every nerve in your body screamed no? How many times have you swallowed your exhaustion, your resentment, your truth, just to avoid disappointing someone else? And how many times did those very people start expecting more and more from you until your yes became invisible, until it carried no weight at all? Now consider the opposite, the single moment you refused. The single time you said, "No, I can't." Didn't everything change? Didn't their eyes widen, their tone shift, their perception of you harden? And yet, deep down, wasn't there also a strange acknowledgement in their silence, as if they suddenly realized you were not as easily possessed as they thought? Here lies the uncomfortable truth. Our value is not revealed when we give endlessly, but when we dare to withhold. Imagine a world where every door is open, every person always agrees, every request is always granted. Would such generosity hold any meaning? Or would it become the default, so abundant that it turns invisible, like air? Perhaps this is why human beings instinctively devalue what is constantly available and elevate what is scarce, what resists, what holds its ground. So the haunting question emerges. Are you respected for what you give, or for what you refuse to give? This is where psychology collides with philosophy, and where society's unspoken rules begin to reveal their cracks. Because somewhere within us, we sense that saying yes without boundaries does not create admiration. It creates dependency. And dependency rarely blossoms into respect. Look back at history, at legends, at the people we call strong. They were not revered because they surrendered to every demand. They were revered because they stood unmovable against pressure. They were not celebrated for blending in, but for standing apart. So here's the riddle you must wrestle with. Why does no, a word so small, so sharp, carry more weight than 1,000 yeses? Why does it echo louder in memory, in relationships, in society, than all the times you agreed? Maybe you've felt the sting of being overlooked, used, or taken for granted. Maybe you've noticed that when you say yes, the world applauds politely. But when you say no, the world pauses, recalibrates, and begins to treat you differently, almost as if your refusal awakened them to your boundaries, to your dignity, to the fact that your time, energy, and attention are not infinite. They are precious. And yet, this paradox raises an even deeper, unsettling question. If respect emerges from resistance, why do so many of us keep betraying ourselves with yes? Why are we terrified of no, when no might be the only path to freedom? The silence that follows is heavy. Because you know the answer isn't simple. It reaches deep into psychology, into childhood conditioning, into the fear of rejection that sits like a ghost in the human heart. It stretches into philosophy, into the eternal struggle between freedom and belonging, between authenticity and acceptance. It even bleeds into society's invisible structures, where compliance is rewarded, but rebellion is secretly admired. And so, the great question begins to take shape. What is it about the word no that transforms how the world sees you? Why does it redraw the boundaries of respect, power, and selfhood itself? And if this is true, what does it reveal about the human soul, about society, about the way we define worth? You can feel the unease now, because if no holds the secret to respect, then perhaps the way you have been living, chasing approval through endless yeses, has been backwards all along. Perhaps what you thought would win love has only earned convenience. Perhaps what you thought was kindness was really self-erasure. The question is no longer whether people respect you when you say yes. They don't. The question is whether you are ready to face the truth. That respect is born in refusal, in the courage to disappoint, in the fire of boundaries. And if that's true, what does that mean for everything you've believed about love, about friendship, about family, about success? This is where the journey begins. To unravel the hidden roots of this paradox, to peer into the psychological and philosophical machinery that drives it, to confront the unseen forces that make yes so easy and no so powerful. The answers are not comfortable, but they will change the way you see yourself and the way the world sees you. The paradox of no has already unsettled you, but to truly understand why people only respect you when you refuse, you must descend deeper into the quiet corridors of psychology, philosophy, and human survival itself. Because this problem is not just social, it is existential. Think back to childhood. When you were small, your world revolved around acceptance. A child who refuses is often punished, with disapproval, with silence, with withdrawal of love. A child who obeys, who nods, who conforms, is rewarded with praise, with smiles, with the warm glow of being good. This conditioning runs so deep it becomes invisible. You learn without words that yes equals belonging and no equals abandonment. You learn that your survival depends not on authenticity, but on compliance. You are taught that the easiest way to be safe is to betray yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you become who you are if your very identity has been built on saying yes to the expectations of others?" Now consider Nietzsche. He believed that most people live not as individuals, but as members of the herd, creatures who fear rejection more than they desire freedom. To Nietzsche, saying no was an act of creation, a declaration of individuality, a rebellion against the herd instinct. But because the herd values safety above all else, the one who says no is treated with suspicion, sometimes even hostility. And yet, paradoxically, they are also respected, because they embody a strength the herd secretly admires but cannot risk. So here lies the contradiction. Society trains you to be agreeable, but society only honors you when you resist. You are trapped in a loop, encouraged to betray yourself in order to belong, but admired only when you dare to refuse belonging. Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher of suffering, once observed that much of human misery comes from our endless desires for approval, for recognition, for love. To him, freedom was not in gaining more, but in renouncing what enslaves us. By that measure, every yes is a link in the chain of slavery, and every no is an act of liberation. But freedom is frightening, and that is why most people do not dare to seize it. Psychology provides a harsher mirror. The need to be liked is not just a preference, it is neurological. Studies show that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. That is why a disapproving look can hurt like a knife, why silence after refusal feels like suffocation. Your brain, built for survival in tribes, interprets no as a threat to your existence. So when you say yes, you are not just being polite, you are obeying an ancient survival instinct. And when you dare to say no, you are going against the grain of evolution itself. But here's the cruel twist. Survival and respect do not always align. To survive, you may need to submit. To be respected, you must resist. And this conflict rips through every relationship, every society, every human soul. Consider Sartre. He declared that human beings are condemned to be free, that even when we obey, we are still making a choice. You think you are powerless when you say yes, but in truth, You are choosing your chains, and the weight of those chains grows heavier with each compliance until you no longer know where others end and you begin. Perhaps this is why Viktor Frankl, who survived the darkest abyss of human cruelty, insisted that dignity lies not in what is done to you, but in how you respond. Saying no is an act of dignity, a refusal to surrender your last shred of freedom. And dignity, unlike obedience, is what earns respect. But why does society hide this truth? Why are we not taught to value no from the beginning? Because compliance serves power. A child who says yes is easier to control than one who resists. A worker who says yes is more profitable than one who questions. A citizen who says yes is more predictable than one who rebels. From the family dinner table to the corporate boardroom, the system thrives on your yes. But it only respects you when your no threatens to destabilize it, because then it must take you seriously. This is why those who always agree are forgotten, while those who resist are remembered. Obedience keeps the world functioning, but resistance shapes history. Let's strip this down to its essence. Saying yes satisfies the need to be liked. Saying no satisfies the need to be respected. And the tragedy is that most people sacrifice respect for the illusion of being liked, never realizing that being liked without respect is nothing more than being used. The psychological roots run even deeper. Think of the people-pleasing archetype, the one who says yes out of fear, the one who bends until they break. This archetype emerges from wounds of childhood, from the belief that love is conditional, that worth must be earned by self-sacrifice. Such people may be surrounded by others, but they live in quiet despair because their yes has no meaning. Jung would say this is the shadow at work, the repressed truth of your own boundaries, your own anger, your own need for selfhood. Every yes without authenticity feeds the shadow until it erupts, sometimes as resentment, sometimes as breakdown, sometimes as a cold refusal that shocks everyone who thought you were endlessly compliant. This eruption is not weakness, it is the shadow demanding balance. It is the psyche reclaiming the respect that endless yeses have squandered. And so, the hidden problem reveals itself. You were taught to fear no because no risks rejection. But beneath the surface, no is the only force that commands respect. The deeper you chase approval, the further you drift from dignity. The more you seek belonging through compliance, the less anyone sees you as an individual worth respecting. In the end, the very strategy meant to keep you safe becomes the prison that silences your soul. The paradox sharpens. Yes feels safe but erases you. No feels dangerous but defines you. And here you stand, caught in the tension of two opposing truths, one inherited from your biology, the other whispered by philosophy. The question is no longer just psychological, it is existential. Will you live as an agreeable shadow, or dare to become a boundary that demands respect? This tension sets the stage for the next revelation, because if this is the hidden root, then the next step is even darker, understanding the unseen consequences, how endless yeses and fearful avoidance of no silently shape your relationships, your identity, your entire life. By now you've seen the hidden roots, how childhood conditioning, evolutionary survival, and societal machinery all conspire to make you say yes when your soul aches to say no. But understanding the root is only half the story. The darker truth lies in the consequences, those invisible scars carved into your life every time you betray yourself for approval. These consequences are rarely obvious. They don't announce themselves with sudden catastrophe. They creep in quietly, like fog, subtle, pervasive, suffocating. Until one day you realize you are no longer living your life, but a performance of compliance designed for everyone else. The first unseen consequence, the erosion of self. Every yes that isn't genuine chips away at the core of who you are. At first, it feels small, agreeing to help when you're tired, saying yes to a plan you don't want, nodding along when you disagree. But over time, these small betrayals accumulate. Psychologists call this self-alienation. You begin to feel a strange distance between your outer actions and your inner truth. Your life becomes an echo chamber of other people's desires until you look in the mirror and barely recognize yourself. You are liked, perhaps, even admired, but you no longer feel real. And here's the paradox. The more you erase yourself for others, the less they respect you. Respect requires edges, boundaries, a shape. Without those, you are shapeless. You are agreeable but invisible. The second consequence, the inflation of others. Every time you say yes against your will, you silently teach others that their needs outweigh yours. You train them to expect your compliance, to assume your availability, to normalize their demands. This is not malice, it is human psychology. The reciprocity bias suggests that when people get something easily, they unconsciously value it less. Your endless yes does not inspire gratitude, it breeds entitlement. What was once considered a favor becomes an expectation. What was once appreciated becomes taken for granted. Think of the last time someone borrowed your time, your energy, your attention. Did they cherish it, or did they assume it? Did they respect the cost you paid, or did they simply come back for more? This is the unseen cruelty of yes. The more you give, the less your giving is valued. Only in resistance, only in no, do people suddenly realize your worth. The third consequence, resentment. Resentment is the silent poison of the compliant. It grows beneath the surface, in the space between what you want and what you do. Outwardly, you may smile, nod, and agree. Inwardly, you are boiling. Resentment does not stay quiet forever. It leaks, through passive aggression, through bitterness, through sudden explosions that seem disproportionate. Jung would call this the shadow's rebellion, the part of you that has been silenced, finally demanding recognition. Ironically, the resentment created by saying yes damages relationships far more than the discomfort of saying no ever could. When you refuse honestly, you risk short-term disappointment. When you comply dishonestly, you guarantee long-term decay. The fourth consequence, the collapse of intimacy. True intimacy, whether in friendship, love, or family, cannot survive without boundaries. If you are always saying yes, then the relationship is not built on authenticity but on performance. Philosopher Martin Buber spoke of two kinds of relationships, I-it and I-thou. In I-it, the other person is an object, something to use, to manage, to shape. In I-thou, the other person is a subject, a soul, a mystery, an equal. Endless yes traps you in I-it relationships. You are no longer a person, but a function, a giver, a provider, a tool. Only no allows you to reclaim I-thou, the sacred encounter where two authentic beings meet as equals. This is why those who always comply are rarely truly loved. They are appreciated, perhaps, needed, relied upon. But love without respect is not love. It is dependency. The fifth consequence, the distortion of power. When you cannot say no, you unconsciously hand over control of your life to others. Your time, your choices, your very identity are dictated by their desires. You live in reaction, not in creation. This is what Sartre warned of. The bad faith of living as an object, denying your own freedom by pretending you have no choice. Every yes spoken in fear is not kindness, it is surrender. And when you surrender too often, people stop seeing you as a free being. They may appreciate your usefulness, but they will not respect your sovereignty. Respect, by its nature, requires recognition of power. A powerless person, no matter how agreeable, cannot be respected. The sixth consequence, the hollowing of meaning. Viktor Frankl argued that humans can endure almost anything, so long as they find meaning. But when you live for the approval of others, meaning drains away. Your days may be full, your schedule overflowing, but the quiet moments reveal a haunting emptiness. Because your yes was never yours, it carries no meaning. It was borrowed, forced, manipulated. And without meaning, life begins to taste bland, no matter how successful it looks from the outside. So the unseen consequences converge. You lose yourself. You inflate others. You breed resentment. You destroy intimacy. You surrender power. You hollow out meaning. And all the while, you tell yourself you are being kind, generous, selfless. But deep down, a whisper persists. This is not respect, it is exploitation. Now turn the mirror the other way. Look at those who dared to say no. Do they not carry a different aura? Even when disliked, they are respected. Even when resisted, they are acknowledged. They may be controversial, but they are real. Why? Because their boundaries demand recognition. Their no defines their existence. And in defining themselves, they force the world to treat them as individuals, not as tools. The urgency becomes clear. Every yes given in fear is a quiet funeral for your selfhood. Every no spoken in truth is a rebirth. But knowing the consequences is not enough. The real question is, how do you break free? How do you escape the trap of approval and reclaim the respect that only no can give? The answer is not simple. It requires rebellion. A rebellion not against society, but against the false self you have built through years of compliance. And so we arrive at the turning point, the rebellion. The act of reclaiming your freedom through the courage of no. By now you see the cost of endless yeses. You've seen how compliance erodes the self, how it breeds resentment, how it hollows out meaning. The question presses on you like a weight. What now? How do you escape? How do you reclaim the respect that comes only through the courage of no? The answer is rebellion. But not rebellion in the chaotic, destructive sense. Not the flailing anger of a child finally lashing out. This rebellion is quieter, sharper, more dangerous. It is the rebellion of authenticity, the refusal to betray yourself any longer. The first act of rebellion, silence before speech. Most people say yes automatically, before their mind has even registered the weight of the request. This reflex is a product of years of conditioning, a survival instinct that runs deeper than thought. To break it, you must reclaim the space between request and response. Pause, breathe, let the silence hang. This silence itself is a rebellion. It unsettles others, disrupts their expectation of immediate compliance. In that pause, you feel the truth rising from within. Do I want this? Do I not? And if the answer is no, let the no emerge, unshaken. This is the first step, delaying your automatic yes long enough for your authentic voice to surface. The second act of rebellion, redefining kindness. Most people-pleasers continue their cycle because they believe saying no is unkind. But what if the opposite is true? What if every false yes is actually a subtle form of deceit? When you say yes while resenting it, you poison the relationship with dishonesty. When you say no with clarity, you offer the gift of truth. Real kindness is not compliance, it is authenticity. Real generosity flows only when it is freely chosen, not when it is extracted through guilt or fear. This is why your rebellion is not against kindness itself, but against the counterfeit kindness that destroys respect. The third act of rebellion, small no's before great ones. To overturn years of conditioning, you cannot begin with the largest battles. Start small. Say no to a minor request, something trivial but meaningful. Feel the discomfort rise in your chest, the anxiety of disapproval pressing in. And then, notice. Nothing catastrophic happens. The world does not collapse. The sky does not fall. In fact, something unexpected occurs. People adjust. They recalibrate. They begin, however faintly, to recognize your boundaries. With each small no, your strength grows. You are not just refusing others. You are retraining your nervous system, teaching your body that refusal is survival, not death. The fourth act of rebellion, remembering history's rebels. Think of those who left marks upon the world. They were not the ones who nodded along politely. They were the ones who stood against the tide. Socrates refusing to renounce his search for truth even when it cost him his life. Rosa Parks saying no to a bus seat and igniting a movement. Gandhi saying no to empire not through violence, but through the quiet, unyielding force of resistance. What united them? The courage to refuse. Their no was not destructive, but creative. It carved out new space in the world for dignity, justice, and freedom. When you say no, you are not just protecting yourself. You are echoing the ancient lineage of those who understood that refusal is the birthplace of respect. The fifth act of rebellion, shifting identity. The deepest trap of compliance is identity. You begin to see yourself as the helpful one, the reliable one, the selfless one. These labels become prisons. To break free, you must rewrite the story of who you are. You are not nice. You are not agreeable. You are not endlessly available. You are sovereign. You are finite. You are a being whose yes carries meaning only when it can also say no. This shift is not easy. It feels like betrayal of the self-image you've carried for years, but it is not betrayal. It is resurrection, the sixth act of rebellion, embracing rejection. Perhaps the hardest truth of all, saying no will cost you something. People who relied on your endless compliance may fall away. Some will label you cold, selfish, arrogant. But pause and ask, what kind of love was it if it required your self-betrayal to survive? What kind of respect was it if it collapsed the moment you claimed your boundaries? Rejection is not the enemy. It is the filter. It removes those who only valued your yes, leaving space for those who will honor your no. This is where Nietzsche's wisdom pierces again. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. To step into your power, you must risk being misunderstood, even hated. But only in that risk lies the respect of those who see your true worth. The seventh act of rebellion, reclaiming time. Every yes is a fragment of your life you will never get back. Every no is time reclaimed, time for reflection, for creation, for love that is chosen, not performed. Imagine what your life could look like if you reclaimed even half of the hours spent on unwanted obligations. How much art could you create? How many dreams could you pursue? How much peace could you cultivate? The rebellion is not just psychological, it is practical. Every no is a door opening to the life you secretly long for, and so the rebellion unfolds, silence before speech, authentic kindness over counterfeit compliance, small no's that build to great ones, remembering history's rebels, shifting identity, embracing rejection, reclaiming time. Each act is a strike against the invisible chains that have bound you. Each act redefines how others see you, not as a shadow but as a presence. Not as a resource, but as a person. Not as agreeable, but as respected. But there is still one step left. The rebellion liberates you from the prison of compliance, but liberation alone is not enough. To truly transform, you must confront the final and ultimate truth. A truth so deep, it redefines not just respect, but existence itself. It is here, in this last revelation, that the paradox resolves. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Imagine this. You stand at the edge of a cliff at dawn. Below you, a vast valley of voices, friends, family, colleagues, society itself, calling out in unison, say yes, be agreeable, belong. Their voices are comforting, familiar. You've heard them your whole life. But behind you, beyond the cliff, is silence. No voices, no demands. Just the uncharted wilderness of your own existence. It is terrifying, because in that wilderness there are no maps, no guarantees, no applause, only you and the truth of your boundaries. This is the ultimate truth. Respect is not given to the agreeable. Respect is reserved for the sovereign. What does sovereignty mean? It means you are not defined by what others demand of you, but by what you demand of yourself. It means your yes is holy because your no is real. It means your worth is not contingent on approval, but rooted in the undeniable reality that you are finite. You are not infinite energy. You are not infinite time. You are not infinite love. And because you are finite, your choices carry weight. Every no you speak is not cruelty. It is truth declaring, I am not infinite, I am human, and that is enough. Here lies the deepest paradox of all. When you live as though you are infinite, saying yes to everything, you become invisible. But when you honor your finiteness, saying no with clarity, you become irreplaceable. The world does not respect the endless giver because endless giving erases scarcity. The world respects the one who can withhold, who can resist, who can stand. Your no is the proof that you exist. Consider the life you have lived so far. How many of your yeses were given not from freedom, but from fear? How many of your choices were made not to honor yourself, but to avoid rejection? And now ask, what has it cost you? Respect cannot coexist with fear. Respect is born in freedom, in the unshakable clarity that you will not betray yourself to keep another comfortable. This is why Nietzsche called for the Übermensch, not a tyrant, but a human who creates their own values rather than inheriting them from the herd. To say no is to create, to define your own ground, to carve the borders of your existence with your own hand. The ultimate truth shatters another illusion too. Love without respect is not love, it is dependency. Affection without boundaries is not intimacy, it is exploitation. Success without sovereignty is not success, it is slavery disguised as achievement. So when you say no, you are not just protecting your time, you are purifying your relationships. You are stripping away the illusions of conditional love, revealing who truly sees you, who truly honors you, who is willing to walk with you not for your compliance but for your presence. Your no, paradoxically, becomes the truest yes, the yes to yourself, the yes to dignity, the yes to the possibility of love that does not consume but respects. But this realization carries a haunting cost, for once you see it, you cannot return to blindness. Every time you say yes from fear, you will feel the sting of self-betrayal. Every time you deny your boundaries, you will know you are trading sovereignty for approval. This is the burden of awakening. The world does not change, but you can no longer live as though you don't see its chains. And yet, this burden is also liberation, because once you taste the respect born from no, you will never again be satisfied with the shallow comfort of yes. Think of Frankl's insight. In the concentration camps, stripped of everything, the last freedom that remained was the freedom to choose one's attitude. That choice, the refusal to surrender inner dignity, was enough to preserve meaning in the midst of horror. If respect can be born even there in the darkest abyss, then surely it can be born in your daily life, in the small refusals, the quiet rebellions, the steady reclamation of selfhood. So the ultimate truth crystallizes. People only respect you when you say no, because no is the language of sovereignty. No is the proof that you are free. No is the fire that turns compliance into dignity, dependency into intimacy, existence into meaning. Every time you say no, you are saying yes to something deeper, to truth, to authenticity, to the sacredness of your own finite life. Now imagine this again. You are in that room full of people. The same room where laughter once turned cold when you said no. But this time something is different. You are not afraid. You do not need their applause. You do not need their approval. You carry something stronger, the unshakable presence of someone who will not betray themselves. You say no, and yes, the air shifts. Some are disappointed, some are offended. But beneath it all, there is silence. A silence not of rejection, but of recognition. They have seen your edges. They have felt your sovereignty. And in that moment, whether they admit it or not, respect has been born. This is the cliff you stand upon, the valley of yes behind you, the wilderness of no before you. The valley is safe but suffocating. The wilderness is terrifying but alive. Which will you choose? If you walk into the wilderness, your life will not become easier. You will lose people. You will risk misunderstanding. You will endure silence, anger, rejection. But you will gain something far greater, respect, not only from others but from yourself. And when you respect yourself, you no longer need to beg for scraps of validation. You no longer trade your soul for belonging. You belong already, to yourself, to the truth, to the unshakable ground of your own existence. So here is the final haunting realization. People only respect you when you say no. Not because they love your defiance, but because your defiance reveals what is most rare in the world, a human being who has chosen sovereignty over slavery, truth over comfort, dignity over approval. In that choice, you cease being a shadow in someone else's story. You become the author of your own. And once you have seen this truth, the only question that remains is the one that will follow you, echoing in every decision, every relationship, every breath. Will you keep betraying yourself for the illusion of being liked? Or will you dare to say no and finally be respected?